If today we ask Hollywood or HBO or Amazon to film the story of the temptation of Jesus in the desert, that's our reading for the first Sunday of Lent, I'm sure they'd turn it over to their special effects department, and you can imagine what they would do. A blinding sun, baking the parched ground, ominous music, warning of danger ahead, Jesus bent over, hungry, thirsty, Satan suddenly dramatically appearing, fierce and ugly and overpowering, out of a horror movie, enough to scare you to death. I remember years ago there was an Italian film I thought used this gospel story very well. It opened with images of a swirling desert, but faded quickly into a railway station in Milan, and a man was going home from work. He was going home to a family falling apart, disintegrating in one conflict after another. This was his desert, his own home, and his family. That's where he was going to face temptation. And that's the way the gospel writers want us to understand the story of Jesus' temptation in the desert. This isn't a story of only 40 days. Even though he worked miracles and healed people, was a great teacher, Jesus was human, God from God, light from light. He was also human all his life. Like us, he faced things that are human things. He faced life as we do. Luke's gospel mentions 3 temptations that Jesus faced. Turn these stones into bread, Satan says to him. Now, if you're human, you can't turn stones into bread. We may like to, but we can't. And maybe one of those great temptations is that we think we can. We think we're masters of creation. We have no limits. We don't have to worry about getting tired or sick or old. But being human means having limits. Jesus accepted human limitations. He was like us. The second temptation Jesus faced was the temptation to control people, to dominate them, to be in charge of them, to make them serve him and his plans. The devil took him up and showed him all the kingdoms of the world in a single instant and said to him, I shall give you all of these, this power and glory. All this will be yours if you worship me. And Jesus' answer was, you shall worship the Lord your God. Him alone shall you serve. Instead of people serving him, Jesus served them. He gave his life for others. I did not come to be served, but to serve, he said. The third temptation in the desert is the temptation to control God. That's what the devil suggests when he takes Jesus up to the temple and tells him to throw himself down. God's angels will save you. You can tell God what to do, the devil says. You shall not put the Lord your God to the test, Jesus responds. The temptation to control God is a sweeping temptation. Instead of we serving God, God serves us. Instead of we doing God's will and working for God's kingdom, God works for us and the kingdom we'd like to come. Not my will, but yours be done, Jesus says to his Father in the garden before his death. In the gospel, Jesus always says he's come to do the will of his Father. The temptations of Jesus, symbolically recalled in our gospel today, are real temptations that we face in life. We'd love to snap our fingers and turn stones into bread, to have things the way we'd like. As human beings, we find it hard to be patient. We'd like everybody to like us, to fall in line with our thinking and take care of our needs. We like to run people's lives. We would like God to do our will. The temptations of Jesus in the desert tell us he was human like us. They also tell us what our temptations are. But remember something else. Satan doesn't win in the desert. God does. Jesus does not tell us just what human temptations are. He promises we can overcome them. God's with us on the journey of life. Satan doesn't win. God wins. God delivers us from temptation